Good morning, everybody. This is your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. And as you can tell, I am not on the paddleboard today. We are down, just further down from Kinloch Falls. There's quite a few people back there. And I'm going to be talking about Nazis today, so kind of wanted to be away from them. Otherwise I would have recorded right there in front of it. Anyways, I brought my car to the dealership today. Don't take your car to a dealership. They tried to charge me $950 for a new alternator, which is way overpriced. I ended up paying $600. I was able to go across the street to get an alternator from AutoZone, and they installed that for me, so I saved some money there. And then I just played hardball whenever it came to the labor. It turns out that the issue was the repair shop that put the new alternator in my car in Indiana did not hook up the wire, the main charging cable, and they may have given me a damaged alternator. So be very cautious whenever you're traveling, especially if your car has issues. People may take advantage of you. And in my circumstance, I could have definitely recognized that the new alternator was not hooked up properly if I had just taken a little time to inspect the alternator, because I've put a new alternator in my car before, and I probably could have saved about $600. Now, fortunately, I get to stay with my family, so I was able to make all that money up while I've been here exploring on the paddleboard. So at the end of the day, I didn't get ahead, but I'm also not really far behind. There does still seem to be some issue with a few of the electronics on my car. Like my phone's not really charging in it, the AC is not totally working. Again, it does have nearly 200,000 miles on it, so I don't expect it to work perfectly, but I think I still need to replace the grounding cable. Anyways, the car itself is driving perfectly fine, so I do believe we will be able to go up to Michigan this month, which will be, if my car dies after that, or if something happens to it, then I'll be totally fine, because that is my main goal. I would like to make it all the way up to Maine this year, but that may have to wait until next year. Worst case scenario, stay around here, which is plenty beautiful enough for the winter months, and get some kind of used affordable car for next summer, and then we can make our travel plans even grander. Anyways, we're going to continue our discussion of the Great Depression, and today we're going to look at what happened in the Weimar Republic, otherwise known as Germany. So after World War I, Germany was really hit hard with the Treaty of Versailles, which was basically, that's the peace agreement, and the Allies, France, the United Kingdom, and the United States demanded massive reparation payments from Germany, which led to the hyperinflation that we've all heard about that occurred in the Weimar Republic in the early 20s. Now, during this hyperinflationary episode, it went from literally I want to say it was 500 Deutschmarks for a dollar, to within 2 or 3 years it was 4.2 million Deutschmarks for a dollar, an insane amount of inflation, which kind of puts ours in perspective, even though it's pretty bad. Some experts stay up to 15% right now. The history of inflation shows that it could be very much worse. Anyways, so after America's stock market crashed in 1929, it forced the American banks to end the loans they were giving to the Germans as part of the Dawes Plan. And that totally messed up their reparation payments, also part of the Young Plan. So then in mid-1931, Credit Anstalt, which was a large bank in Austria that the German economy depended on, totally closed, which put additional pressure on the Germans. And investors from abroad, like American and the UK investors, began to withdraw short-term investments, which because they lost their confidence. And by 1932, 90% of Germany's war reparation payments had been suspended. Unemployment would hover around 25% in Germany, comparable to the United States, but it would peak at even higher, around 30%. So they ended up the Brüning, or I think that's Brüning, was the leader of the Weimar Republic at the time, and he kind of did what Hoover did, which was just, leave it alone, liquidationism. And they actually imposed draconian spending cuts cutting or like decreasing the benefits given to the unemployed, to the infirm, the ill, like the disabled. And now here's an interesting thing is in 1930, at the start of all this, the Nazi Party only held 18.3% of the vote. But by 1932, they would take control of the Weimar Republic and institute Hitler as a new dictator, right? So moderates Paul von Hindenburg and Heinrich Brüning would end up supporting Hitler's chancellorship because they could see that he was becoming more popular. Hitler was getting power based off of like the lower classes, the working class people who were struggling in their economy. And they had implemented those draconian spending cuts, cut employment and unemployment benefits, and that led to like the debt deflation scenario that Irving Fisher was so famous for. Now, the Nazi Party would win, at its peak, only 37.3% of the vote, which was enough to give them power in their democratic system. They actually partnered with some of the other major parties, the Catholics. During the debates in the 1932 election, Hitler would pay respects to the Christian faith, and he has a quote where he says that it was essential, that Christianity was an essential element for safeguarding the soul of the German people, right? He would also promise that the Enabling Acts, which was put forth on the Reichstag after the Reichstag fire, would not threaten the democracy or the president's authority. Now, once Hitler gains power, he has Joseph Goebbels as like the father of modern propaganda start putting out all of this great stuff about like how the German economy is improving. And truthfully, Hitler's policies did improve the German economy for a lot of like the lower and working class people, which is why he was able to gain so much support. He partnered with the Communist Party, which was also very powerful at the time in Germany. And the government would start using what we would say today as like Keynesian economic policies, massive deficit spending, that did help to stimulate the economy. He began to rearm the Wehrmacht, the German army, in secret, and he undertook huge public work programs that ended up culminating in like the Autobahn, the modern German highway system that is still in use today. Overall, in a period of about 5 years, Hitler would completely take over and transform the Weimar Republic into a non-democratic country. And what's very interesting is he was an autarkic leader, and he gained the support of the moderates of the time, right? They believed that if they worked with him, that he would like kind of come towards their direction and not be so extreme, but really he outpoliticked him, period. He was a very good orator. He also that was like the very advent of modern advertising and propaganda and stuff. So the Great Depression in the United States led to the New Deal, which was an unprecedented wave of reform that did bring a lot of relief to the American people. In Germany, Hitler came to power. And he came to power with the support of moderates, like the people that, you know, we would consider to be safe in our current electoral environment. It did affect the Germans worse than some of their neighbors because of like the Treaty of Versailles and everything, but ultimately, I think what's the most interesting is that his policies, that fucking bug, his policies led to some relief for the German people, and that's really why they were so okay with him taking power. He was able to improve some of their situations in some ways. Now, obviously, we know how things end. He would begin to make aggressive territorial demands against Czechoslovakia and Austria. He takes over Austria in the Anschluss in, I want to say it's 1934, 1935. And then he gets the Sudetenland for Czechoslovakia just after that. And by 1939, he invades Poland, France, Soviet Union, whole world's in war. And the war is actually what brings the U.S. out of the Great Depression, too. So, that's really the main topic for today. You know, Germany, because of economic hardship, its people elected a dictatorial leader who wound up creating the world's deadliest conflict of all time. I think that's really rather foreboding with all the news we've heard in our current environment about, an impending recession and whatnot. So it's important for us to keep those facts in mind, especially whenever we're making our choices as far as voting. Next time that I talk about the Great Tomorrow, we'll talk about Stoicism on our usual production schedule. Next time I talk about the Great Depression, I'm going to look at a few of the other minor countries. Japan, which did not suffer too badly from the Great Depression, as well as Italy, which did suffer pretty badly, Greece, and a few other major countries. And then we'll look at like the economic effects of World War II, and after that we'll move into the Great Recession. After the Great Recession is done, we will probably talk about some of the other minor panics and banking crises, eventually moving into the central banking system. There's plenty of content that we can talk about. But anyways, I will be spending the next 2 or 3 days here in Alabama just to make sure that my car at least is drivable, even if the electronics aren't fully functional. As long as it's safe to drive, then I'm going to make sure that I hit Michigan by the end of this month, July. And if things are still looking good after that, I want to so badly to make it all the way up to Maine by the end of August. Now, that may not be in the cards this year, but I do believe that we can definitely see Hoosier National Forest in Indiana, Huron National Forest in Michigan, as well as the some of the Great Lakes, and then we'll work our way west, go through Wisconsin. There's a Superior National Forest there, and work our way south to meet up with my family at the Neshoba County Fair in Mississippi before deciding where we're going to go from there. So tomorrow I may be back on the paddleboard just to reduce my gas consumption, but that's pretty much it. Long term, sometime this winter I'll probably be stationary for a while, just to kind of prepare. Eventually I'm gonna have to replace the car that I have right now. It is 10 years old, and it's been a trooper so far. I think it's still got a little more life in it, but it's not gonna last till it's 50. That's for sure. Anyways, as always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. This is a wandering author here, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. What are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love you guys. Y'all have a good day now.